I'm here at the home of Rob and Maree Zawosky. Rob and Maree are people that I have held in very high regard for a long time. I've seen them in the act of grandparenting and admire them a great deal. Rob, thank you for taking a little time to talk with us today. Why don't we just begin by talking about your granddaughter. Just tell us a little bit about Olivia.
Okay, there's nothing that I enjoy more than talking about Olivia. She's the joy of our life. And so cute. But, we've had the privilege of growing up with Olivia. So when she needed us the most, we had free time and we were there available. So when she was 1, 2, 3 years old, she would jump in the car and she'd come down to Paulsboro and spend 2 or 3 days on her own, and she would never say anything about her mama or daddy. She was just enjoying her grandparents. Now she has a good mom, she has a good dad, and they're more important to her life. So our role is a little less than that, but she's a joy of our life.
That's wonderful. What are your hopes for Olivia?
Well, my biggest hope, I prayed, I prayed with Dave Sellers about this at the beginning, and he said, we want Olivia to be a woman of God. And so that's our prayer, that Olivia would be a woman of God, no matter which way her parents go. No matter what happens, Olivia is a woman of God. And she has already proven that. She only comes to church with us maybe 4 times a year or something. And that's her church experience. But now that she's been able to read, she will sit there and read the liturgy. She'll read the song words. She'll sing the songs. And our church is her church. And so we're glad she's becoming a woman of God.
And what things do you do with or for Olivia that are congruent with your hopes for her?
Oh, okay. We are focused on family. So family events are important, and this is simple as praying before a meal. She knows when she comes to Grandma and Grandpa's house, she holds hands and she prays before a meal. She shuts her eyes and she's a real prayer. So, these traditions I think are important. We had a grandparents' weekend where it was a couple of days, a grandparents' getaway, that's what we call it, where we got her other grandma, Bonnie, and we had Grandma Maree, and then we had her friend, Ruby, and Ruby's grandma, and we went out and did some fun things as grandparents and grandchildren. So I hope those memories stick with her.
Now, you have taken some trips to Hawaii.
Right.
And those are very memorable things, I'm sure. And you'd probably like Olivia to have a memory of them. Mm-hmm. I understand you've done kind of a picture book from a recent trip.
Right. I decided I'd put all those pictures in one place, and so they're in this book, a Costco book, and it has some narrative in it too. So this is part of her history. So I want her to remember Hawaii as being a happy place with her family. And so I have pictures to prove it, so that when she's 16 years old, she can go back and remember, when I was 5, I had a really good time on Hawaii.
Well, that's pretty neat. Rob, do you have any particular fears for Olivia?
Well, certainly as grandparents love to worry, and so we worry about our grandchildren, but we worry that she has secular influences in her life instead of spiritual influences. She has older children in one family who influence her son. And so you're praying that she also has spiritually good friends who help her grow in her faith as well.
What do you want to be for Olivia?
I want to be a great memory of a happy person, a person whose faith made his life joyous. And I've had so many good experiences, so many good things I could participate in, including her life, but obviously other things. And I just want to be the memory of life can be sweet if you have faith.
Do you feel that you're in any way in competition with your son or your daughter-in-law in Olivia's upbringing?
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly believe, and so does her mom too, or Maree, believe that we have less influence than we used to when she was a baby. You know, she loved Grandma and Grandpa. We could take her anywhere. She wouldn't even mention her father or mother. Now she's 7 years old, and her father's her hero, and they play rough and tumble, and they love it. And her mom's a good mom, and she has good experiences. So I think we have less influence now than we used to, but she has a whole history bank of our being in her life and part of her family. So that you're trusting God that those memories and His Spirit will live in her heart.
Do you write to Olivia?
Oh, that's what, when she was first born, and we were up in Bellingham where she was living. Every other week we were up there 2-3 days because Stephen and Wendy needed our help, so we were there. And so I wrote a book of her first 2 years of life with every visit the grandparents made, you know, what we did, what kind of fun we had. And I put pictures with some of those little paragraphs. So she knows her first 2 years of life, I think. So that's something she already cherishes. And he used to be, hey Olivia, I'll read you her storybook if you want to read about your first 2 years. Well, now so Olivia goes in and finds that book and says, Grandpa, I'll read it to you because I know my story. So it's cool, you know. So we have shared her story in our family.
How do you communicate between visits?
Well, she's in very good on a phone. You know, her attention span is not that strong. You know, and he use a phone or and anything even with video. But we see her probably once every 2 or 3 weeks. So we've been seeing her a lot lately and enjoying that.
Nice. And Rob, you're passing through a time of challenge relative to your own physical health. If Olivia could express herself in that regard, what does that mean to her? And how has it affected your relationship to her and to your son and daughter-in-law?
Yes, well, with Olivia, I had a conversation with her about cancer. So she knows that Grandpa has cancer. And she said, oh, but I thought you were over that now, or something. So she has little understanding, but she doesn't have the full understanding. But she lost her other grandfather this summer, and so I'm the only grandpa left. So she knows what loss is, excuse me. But I think it's good, realistic living, that you enjoy people while they're here, and you thank God for them, and then you move on to what God has in your life for the coming. And so, both Wendy and Steve have been very supportive during this time, and we have a wonderful family. So I'm thankful, and I trust God. I've struggled with, how long should I be here? So I can have more influence. But really, it comes down to trusting God with her life and saying she's had the exposure, and now I trust God.
Do you share with her in any kind of an explicit way about the gospel?
Well, she is 7 years old, so we figured she gets some of that in Sunday school at her level, and so we don't want to confuse that. So we haven't had a whole lot of gospel-oriented conversations with her. I think she knows who Jesus is, and we talk about Jesus. So I think as she grows, she'll understand better.
Rob, what counsel would you give to other grandparents?
Well, grandparents are, first of all, I tell you, don't start too late, because I used to give Steve and Wendy a hard time about, okay, you waited about 10 years too long for me to be at my peak grandparenting years, because I can get down on the floor, but I can't get up anymore, so I can get down there and play with her, but then it's hard getting up. So seriously, I would say just enjoy each phase of their life. It's just like going through childhood all over again. And the wonder they see in the world is just amazing. So enjoy that wonder and just enjoy what you trust God is going to make out of this person.
Rob, are there any other things that you would finally like to share with other grandparents?
Yeah, I would say life is going to be hard, and there are some hard things in your family that you would go through, and your grandchildren will understand them too. So we went through a divorce, we went through an attack, we went through a cancer diagnosis, and all hard things. And so we can go back and remember things as a family, and it's a positive experience because you've gone through that dark time together. So now you can do the happier times together too. So just share life with your grandchildren, both the good and the bad, and they'll grow from it, I'm sure.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.